commercial. This episode is brought to you by Getty's Bike Tours. Let me try it again. This episode is brought to you commercial-free by Getty's Bike Tours. Spring is here, and it's time to visit Gettysburg, and there's no better way to experience your history than by a bike tour with Getty's Bike. Mention address in Gettysburg when you call to book and receive 15% off. So call 717-752-7752 and book today. Getty's Bike Tours. Think outside the bus.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
I knew what I was doing there, Eric.
Did you?
Yeah, you didn't think I did.
Oh, man.
I saw you panicking. Press the button. Press the button.
What are you doing?
Press the button. Why aren't you pressing the
You're just sitting there.
Well, that's part of the wonder for the people on Facebook watching us live is they get to see how the sausage is made, you see? What was that face, Mike?
Who wouldn't want to see how the sausage gets made?
What, Mike? What are you laughing at?
Yeah, I'm with Eric on this.
You don't want to see the sausage getting made? Well, you just did. You just witnessed it. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Ask a Gettysburg Guide. We like to do this, I don't know, once a quarter maybe? It's our Q2.
Every once in a while. Yeah, but it's not coming out until like Q3.
I don't know. I might push it up because of what I'm about to say. I might push it up. We just had our first Get Out of the Car tour this weekend. We had 50 people, Eric. 50 people.
Did. Yeah.
And that was about 15 more than I expected. It's 15 more than our average of last year.
And it's exactly how many I expected.
And Eric called it. So, Eric, you know what you get? Do you know what you get, Eric?
Do I get a Dan Butterfield?
Dan Butterfield.
Yeah, you called it, baby. Yeah, that was great. We had a lot of fun. I did, at least. I don't know. Mike Lynch, you were on it. You tell me. Did you have fun?
Absolutely.
Did you learn anything?
A lot. Seeing Forbes Rock from that perspective was phenomenal. Also, didn't know you could go up there and actually sit cross-legged on it. So thanks to one of the other listener Mike's up there kind of doing the Rafiki up there.
Yeah. And I didn't know that was him. I saw him up there, and later on found out that was him. I had no idea.
I didn't even know what you guys are talking about.
Well, I don't want to embarrass the guy and say his name on the air. So you know,
I had the dog.
You had the dog.
Damn dog.
It was nice.
It was
nice. It was a good time. So thank you to everyone who came out. And then we went to Mason-Dixon. Thank you to Mason-Dixon for sponsoring it. We went to Mason-Dixon afterwards, and about 35 or 36 people came over there too, which was great because that makes it worth it for everybody that those people came out. So you guys are really an awesome crowd, and thank you very much for all the support and all the things that you do for us, and it helps us keep this stuff going. And thank you once again. Today we are doing homeless questions, as we often like to do. And those of you watching on Facebook Live, we'll get to your questions. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section, and when we're done, we're going to get to them. But we're going to get right into them now with our special guest guide, everybody's favorite, Jim Pangburn. Thank you, Jim. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, guys. It's great to be here.
Always great to have you. You know that. We love having you on. Jim, let's get into some of these homeless questions. There's no background to give today because we're not talking about one specific thing. These are questions that had no home on previous episodes of Ask a Guide. And yeah.
If you remember back in the olden times,
I do.
This is the way we did all of them.
This is the original format of the Ask a Guide show.
Like the first 9 or so.
We would just do like a shotgun approach to just throw all these questions at the guide. But then when this is how things. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? We lose our studio because of the coronavirus. We couldn't go in the building anymore, and it coincided with spring. And so we said, well, let's go out on the battlefield. Well, since we're going out on the battlefield, let's do shows about specific spots on the battlefield. And then once we came into the studio, we just kept doing that about a certain subject. But once in a while, people don't understand that when we say, we want questions about John Gordon, for example, and they send in a question about like Elijah Hunt Rhodes. And it's like, well, okay, it doesn't fit in but I'm going to put it aside, and that's what we do. So anyway, these are those questions here. Okay, Jim, here we go. Bob Fleming says, from what I've read and heard, Iverson did not put out skirmishers. I don't believe that's normal, but was this completely uncommon? Would his subordinates have the right to put them out at the regimental level?
That's a terrific question. It was very uncommon. Normally, you would, when you're about to go into battle, you send about 1/10 of your regiment, like a company, 40, 50 men out on a skirmish line to make contact with the enemy, to draw fire from the enemy. You're able to pin down their position, get an idea of the strength of the enemy, and give your own force warning, acting like a tripwire that there's going to be a battle. So it kind of acts like a buffer before the two sides meet. And it was very unusual. If Iverson didn't put out skirmishers, it was probably because his superior, General Rhodes, was trying to seize the initiative, knew that the Union troops were in the Sheeds Woods, and wanted to seize the initiative, wanted to hit the Union Army before they could push him, Rhodes' division, off of Oak Ridge. Sometimes you have flankers, and that's what really would have applied to what occurred on July 1st on Oak Ridge. You send a few guys off to the right or left, but most of the skirmishers were out in front of the line. And what was happening here on July 1st is I think Iverson was counting on O'Neill's Alabama Brigade to protect his left, down below Oak Ridge on the left, and couldn't really see them, and didn't realize that when he went forward that O'Neill had been repulsed near the Mummersburg Road, and that as he moved forward across the Mummersburg Road toward the Sheets Woods, that he had no support on his left. And the Union troops had come up behind Oak Ridge and perhaps through the Sheets Woods and gotten behind a stone wall on Iverson's left. And so they didn't detect him until it was too late. Suddenly the Union troops arose on Iverson's left and essentially bushwhacked Iverson's brigade.
So you would argue that if he had put out flankers, that would have saved or helped give some kind of warning?
It might have alerted the rest of the brigade to what was going on. I don't know if they did or not. But there's a lot of smoke on the battlefield, and you can't really see anyhow. And most of the Union troops were behind a wall and a ridge behind that. And I think Iverson was concerned with what was straight ahead of him in the woods he was headed toward.
Right.
So I think if he did not put skirmishers out in front of him, and I think I've heard that, it was because it was an impetuous attack, and Rhodes was anxious to seize initiative and wanted to hit the Yankees and drive them back before they could drive him off of Oak Ridge.
Okay. All right. The next one is Balthazar. He says, what happened and who was Coster's brigade facing at the Brickyard? So I guess he wants to know about the Brickyard fight and who was Coster up against.
Coster's brigade consisted of 27th Pennsylvania, 154th New York, 134th New York. They were originally part of the reserve that Howard left on Cemetery Hill on July 1st. And when the Union right at Barlow's Knoll, northeast of town, was overlapped, Coster's brigade was sent, small brigade, was sent to the northeast of town where Coon's Brickyard is, to form a line to cover the retreat of the Union 11th Corps, Barlow's division specifically, back through town. And what happened to them, who they were facing primarily is Hayes Louisianans, some North Carolinians under Avery. But they had formed a line, and in turn, they were overlapped. The Confederates outnumbered them pretty heavily, and the 134th New York, I believe it was on the far right of Coster's brigade, and they were just simply overlapped. When you go to Coster's Avenue today, that small block of land that the park owns, and you look at the mural done by Mark Dunkelman, you can see on the far left-hand side, you can see Confederates kind of coming over a fence and flanking the Union line up there. Yeah. So that line was in turn flanked, and then down Stratton Street, Coster's brigade went, and of course that's where Amos Humiston got wounded.
Right, and so he had a follow-up question about that. Besides Amos Humiston, what were some other unique 11th Corps town fighting stories, I guess, on the 1st and 3rd in Gettysburg?
I was reading that question last night, trying to prepare for this, and first I had a hard time thinking of any. There are a couple. Of course, Humiston's probably the most famous. He's retreating down Stratton Street, gets wounded, realizes he's dying, pulls out the photo of his 3 children, and later they use the photo to identify him. But the two things that come to mind, a lot of people are familiar with General Schimmelfennig of the 11th Corps. And he's retreating probably down the alley on the west side of Baltimore Street. I forget what the name of the alley is, but Confederates were coming down the alley after him. He jumped over a fence into the backyard of
Garlock.
I was just going to say Garlock, but I wasn't sure it was her. Anna Garlock.
I'm not sure either.
And she lived close. But in any case, he hides under a...
like a woodshed or a pigsty.
That's it.
Like
it was near a pigsty. It was a woodshed, and he hid there for several days. And she came out and gave him food. He didn't make it quite into the Union lines in Cemetery Hill. He's still just within the town, the southern edge of town, and he's within the Confederate lines. But he evades capture by hiding in that woodshed area. The other thing that I thought of was the story. The one that always kind of impressed me was, I think it's the 45th New York under Colonel Dobke, and they were some of the first 11th Corps guys out north of town on July 1st, and they were the ones that kind of went out toward the McLean farm and first made contact with the Confederates. They end up retreating back through what is the college today, and they end up. At this point, Union 1st Corps guys are coming down Chambersburg Street, and they're in the area of Washington in Chambersburg Street, about a block west of the square, kind of near where the 7-Eleven is today. Yeah. And in some of those houses, like where the Blue Parrot used to be, and where, what's his name, the attorney, Thaddeus Stevens, had his law office, that area, they were hiding in some of those houses. Yeah. And the Confederates come in, and they surround the area, and there's a negotiation going on. You guys need to surrender. You're surrounded. And the Yankees aren't quite, they don't believe it. And the Confederates say, well, we'll allow you to come out and take a look. And so some of these Union guys came out, officers, whatever, came out and looked around, realized that they were surrounded on Chambersburg Street there, and then did end up surrendering. But a lot of it, it's hard to pick out a lot of the 11th Corps stuff because so many 1st Corps guys are coming down from the west and intermingling with the 11th Corps guys. But another thing I thought of last night when I was looking at that question is there was a barricade that was constructed on Carlisle Street between the square and the railroad station, and where the Lincoln Diner is today, near where the railroad tracks are. That was kind of interesting that the Union Army had a chance to actually build a barricade, slow the Confederate pursuit, and slow the Union guys down on their way back to Cemetery Hill to the south. The other thing I thought of is the picture I've had of the number of Union troops, probably both corps intermingled, going down Baltimore Street. And they said there were so many of them that they went from building on one side of the street to the building on the other side.
Oh, I'd imagine.
So it's shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hardly move because you're just gridlocked to all these troops.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be unbelievable.
Like trying to get out of a Yankees game, or something like that. Everybody's all jammed together trying to get to that little turnstile or whatever the heck it is. But those are the things that I think of with the 11th Corps and the first day that was going on. Just so much chaos and confusion in the streets of town.
I'm sure there's hundreds, thousands of stories that are hidden somewhere in an attic in some diary or something that we haven't even heard yet. I hope, because
lots of interesting stories of the way the citizens tried to hide Union soldiers in the houses from the Confederates, and in the interactions the Confederates had both with the residents and any Union prisoners they captured in some of the houses. Lots of good stories.
Who was it that was they were in the basement and they saw the Union soldier get killed? And then the Confederates came and rifled through his pockets and stuff. And then the father went out and wrapped him in a blanket and then went back down into the basement. And then later more Confederates came and rifled through his pockets. And this went on for a while until he finally said, "Forget it, I'm just going to leave him there." Do you remember who that was? Was that the Garlacks or?
I don't remember that.
Or the Shrivers? Eric, was it on the Shriver House tour?
Well, it couldn't have been the Shrivers because
they
he
were
was in
down
the Army.
Okay, yeah. No, but so maybe it was... Who the hell was it? Who was it?
I'm not sure.
But you know the story. You've heard the story, right?
I don't think I've heard that particular one.
I've heard that type of story. I don't remember that particular. Yeah.
Someone in the audience knows, and they'll watch the comments.
I know the wheel lock story from the Sheed's house.
I thought about that one, Eric, but that's 97th.
Yeah, that's First Corps.
That's First Corps.
Yeah, exactly.
They're up on Oak Ridge, close to the 11th Corps line there.
Yeah.
But I thought that's one of them I thought about. And then the Union chaplain, was it Horatio Henry Howell?
Yeah.
That was on the steps of the Christ Lutheran Church.
He's buried at Greenwood Cemetery.
Now, what unit was he associated with? Is anybody?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
Oh, wasn't it the 97?
I'm thinking he's First Corps.
He was First Corps.
Okay, yeah. That's why I didn't think of his story, because they specifically asked for the 11th Corps stories.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on then here to Alex Barney. Oh, this is a new name. I don't think I've heard this name before. Well, welcome, Alex. If you could go anywhere on the battlefield that's off the beaten path, where would you go and why? Interesting question. Not a battle question. This is a gym question.
Yeah, I like that question. When I saw that, I really did.
Okay, good.
But it's hard to say. When I thought of the question, I thought he said places that I like to go. So that means places that I like to actually not just see, like the Jones Artillery Position out on Harrisburg Road, which is behind a nursing home, which is cannons there, which is really cool if you've never seen them.
Yeah.
But there's nothing really to see except in the wintertime. Maybe you can see some of the steeples of the town and get an idea what it was like in 1863 when it was open. But I thought of things like I'd like to go and just kind of spend time there. And two of them are out on the Hanover Road. And the one that I think I like the most is Benner's Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Because Benner's Hill, it's not far from the town. It's east of town. And it's seldom visited, and it's a long road with artillery pieces, and then there's a cul-de-sac, and you can park. But I'll tell you why I really like it. In case I shouldn't give this away because it's kind of a private thing. Nobody will go out there anyhow. Nighttime.
Yeah.
I love Benner's Hill at nighttime. Now, it's east of town. It's elevated.
Yeah.
It's up on the Hanover Road. And when you're up there and you look down, you can see the lights of Gettysburg. Kind of reminds me of like being up on Mulholland Drive, looking down at the lights of L.A., but a smaller version of that. But I've always liked that a lot.
Sure.
And then if you go out, I don't know how, is it Alex Barn?
Yeah, Alex.
I don't know if he's ever been out to East Calvary Battlefield, but if you spend the time to take the 3 miles beyond Benner's Hill and you go out beyond Route 15 and you go out to East Calvary, it's pristine out there.
Yeah.
It's
I love
pristine.
it out there.
I mean, the only thing that's out there that wasn't out there during the battle are a couple of modern houses, some monuments, maybe some pavement. But I mean, they're still farming the fields out there. It's the way it was.
Yeah, Eric and I were out there last spring while they were spraying liquid manure all over the place.
Oh, yeah, that
It was delightful.
That was phenomenal.
It was wonderful. But yeah, no, I hear you. Those are two of my favorite places to go because nobody's there. Nobody knows about them.
You might see somebody once in a while, but I know we used to go up there, friends of mine, we used to go up there and smoke cigars at night.
Oh, yeah.
During the summer.
Yeah.
Like we just smoke a cigar or something.
Smoke a cigar, watch the sunset.
No one's going to bother
Talk.
you.
No.
Yeah, watch the sunset.
no.
Good place
Yeah.
to do that. It's quiet, like you said, Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, I love, I go up to Benner's Hill quite often. I love it up there.
I do too.
Yeah. And,
One other place.
Yeah.
South Cavalry Battlefield.
Yeah.
Down the Emmitsburg Road. If you've never been there, you can pull off the side of the road. It's not really easy to do.
Yeah.
But it's near I think it's the Battlefield Bed and Breakfast.
Yes.
It's kind of parallel to the little dirt road that takes you back there. And there's cannons and there's interpretive markers and brigade markers. And then you can walk on the other side of the road on the west side.
that's where I like
and
to
there's
go.
not too many, but a couple of markers. But it's just something if you haven't done before, it's kind of cool. You go down the Emmitsburg Road, you go past Knight Road where the recreation vehicles park is and the bowling alley, and past the 6 Pennsylvania Cavalry.
Yep.
It's just before you go downhill as you're headed south down Emmitsburg Road. You can see the markers from the road if you slow down, and so I thought about that too. That's a kind of cool place.
I love to go to the west side because it's like I just discovered it 2 years ago. I never knew it was there. I always knew South Cavalry Field was there on the east side of the road because it's obvious, but I never noticed the other one.
They mow a lane.
Yeah,
And
I know.
The problem is you can't slow down on that road to see it.
No.
And if you did slow down or you managed to pull off the road, then you discover it.
Yeah, it's hard to park. You got to know where it is ahead of time because by the time you notice it, you're literally passing it. So you have to know ahead of time and pull off.
That's exactly. I used to live down that road just a way, so I used to go up and down that all the time. But that's where Merritt's guys came up. On the Union left flank on the third day before Farnsworth charged, they were supporting Farnsworth's left, and a lot of people don't know that. But in the fields just across from the South End Guide Station, the Confederate right was positioned there facing south, and Merritt's guys came up like almost toward the Eisenhower farm. And, today some of that is it's just lost. It's not marked very well as far as battle action, but stuff occurred there.
Yeah. Going back to the previous one about the people in the basement, Anthony Bordner said he thought it was also the Shrivers as well. And I think the confusion, Eric, would be that the Shrivers went with the Garlacks, didn't they? They were in somebody's basement other than
they went to
their
the
own.
Garlock basement,
Right.
But the Garlocks weren't there.
Okay, so they weren't
Garlocks
with
had
another
left,
family.
and then they ended up back in their own basement at some point. But the basic premise of the story is that the guy is going out and wrapping this body.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't there.
Who?
George Shriver.
No, but it doesn't have to be George Shriver. That's why I thought they were with another family. That's why I thought that.
Well, Mrs. Shriver went to Tilly Pierce.
Yeah.
And said, we're heading south to some relatives or friends for safety on the first day to get away from the fight.
Right.
Do you want to come with us?
Maybe it is the Garlocks that stayed. Oh, Christ, I don't know.
Somebody's got to Google this.
Yeah.
Mike, can you Google it on your phone while you're over there? Would you do that, please?
Somebody get Nancy from the Shriver house on the phone.
Oh, there you go. Call the Shriver. We got to set up phones so we could just call things on the air. All right. Well, in the meantime, we'll move on. The show must go on. Joey Click from out there in Kentucky, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Joe Click, he says, not really a question, but you should ask the guide about General Lee's lost chicken at Gettysburg. He was really upset about his pet chicken missing and deployed men to go find her. Lee was an animal lover and especially loved cats, which would then go and eat the chicken. I think we found out where the chicken went. The cat ate the chicken.
There it is.
Yes.
There it is.
The cat ate the chicken, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Joe Click. You answered your own question. Go ahead.
Well,
Tell us about the chicken.
That's probably the toughest question I've had. I mean, I'd heard that he had a pet chicken. I never knew that he was a big cat fan, so that's kind of interesting. I learned something there. But, I've read a lot about that, and I've never seen much about Lee's chicken at all. I don't doubt maybe he did have a chicken there. Supposedly laid an egg for him every day. I've heard something about that. I don't know if that's
so
true.
He would have his breakfast with from the chicken.
So he gets the eggs rather than eating the chicken. But
got it.
I know very little about that. There's not a lot that I've seen on Lee's chicken at Gettysburg.
Okay.
But of course he had 2 or 3 horses. He had Traveler and Lucy and.
Yeah, Traveler, Lucy, and I was trying to think of the other one.
I can never think of the third one.
Yeah.
Never think of the third one.
Call him Reginald.
But you got me on that one.
Okay, Rich Snyder, who I met for the first time, came on the tour on Saturday. It was nice to meet you, Rich. He says he's got 2 questions. One, were captured POWs kept in the area during the battle? I thought I heard once that the Union started sending captured Confederates down towards Westminster during the battle.
Now, that question I can answer.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know where the Union guys kept the Confederate prisoners? Right across the parking lot from where we are right now.
Oh.
If you're familiar with the Gettysburg National Military Park Visitor Center on Baltimore Pike, it's that big field they cleared a few years ago right across the Baltimore Pike and slightly south. In other words, between Culp's Hill and the Visitor Center.
Oh, yeah.
If you come out of the Visitor Center, you turn right, you go down to Baltimore Pike. It's the field on the left.
Uh-huh.
And it makes sense because it's surrounded by trees. They can enclose it. And it was right on the Baltimore Pike, which is the main Union supply line. And he's right. The closest Union railhead was at Westminster. So they marched him down the Baltimore Pike. Where they kept him was right along the pike. And now I don't think they moved him during the battle, because you have to remember, after the first day's fight, the Union Army only had 3 roads that they were able to control. The Emmitsburg Road, barely, kind of in between the lines, the Taneytown Road, and the Baltimore Pike, which is the main supply line. Mm-hmm. So you've got messengers coming in and out of the Baltimore Pike. You've got supplies, artillery coming and going, supplies and so forth. So I would think you would keep that road open. It was after the battle, when the battle was over, that they started sending the prisoners down to Westminster to put on trains. Now, as far as the Union captured, the Confederates kept them in those fields, the first day's fields west of town.
Okay.
Just beyond Lee's headquarters, and the seminary. You know how when you're coming over Seminary Ridge on Route 30 as you leave town, that area where Buford's men camped the night before the battle.
So like that little swell between McPherson's Ridge and Seminary Ridge.
That's it, Matt.
Yeah.
My understanding is that's where they kept a lot of them. And they said, I remember reading one time recently about that, and they said it was disgusting both for the Confederates who were behind the lines on day 2 and 3 and the Union prisoners that were kept back there because of the stench of the bodies and the heat from the first day's casualties that were lying there, hadn't been buried yet. And I always think of that. A lot of people probably don't think much of that when they drive through there. But there's Route 30, which is the main line that they took the prisoners and the wounded out on. So it makes sense that they would be close to that road.
Right. So same idea as the Union is that they're in a big field by their main route of retreat or supply or whatever.
But think about this. The Union, the main railhead, the closest railhead for the Union Army that Confederate prisoners have to march to is 25, 30 miles away at Westminster, Maryland. The Union prisoners have to march over South Mountain, into the Cumberland Valley, over the Potomac, into the Shenandoah Valley, and the closest Confederate railhead is about 150 miles, 175 miles away at Stanton, Virginia.
Oof.
But then flip of the coin, that also tells you something about who can be supplied a lot easier. The Union Army can be supplied by rail 30 miles away, and the Confederate closest railhead's 175 miles away.
Again, like the more I learn about the finer details of the war and this battle, I just wonder how the Confederates ever thought they had a chance of winning.
Yeah, kind of a desperate thing, and I think they're riding the wave of a crest of confidence.
Yeah,
they've had, and
apparently that goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mixture of they're confident and they're kind of desperate. They've really got to win an important battle here on northern soil, because I think Lee and they all knew that it was just a matter of time.
I think it was desperation and delusion that gave birth to the Confederacy. That's my take on the whole thing, because I don't understand. It sounds like part of the country just like lost its mind. It's not that they didn't believe what they were fighting for or anything. It was that, how do you think you can win a war? And I mean, I know in the beginning they were winning on the battlefield a lot, but at the end of the day, I don't know if that's really what wins wars.
Probably underestimated the will of the northern people in the Union Army.
Overconfidence.
Probably thought, they'll probably let us go when they see we're serious about this, and then they found out that it was very important to the people of the United States to say single Union.
Yeah.
Protect the Union.
Very strange. Very strange. I don't understand why you would waste so many lives in order to force people who don't want to be with you to stay in in a union with you. Like, could you imagine like a married couple doing that? Like,
Yes.
Actually, yeah, I could. Yeah. They use the children as
I used to be in that marriage. I really like that question, specifically because starting today, this afternoon, every day this week, there is a diary that was written by Nathaniel Rawlins of the 2nd Wisconsin. But he was captured on July 1st, and there's like a 6-day block from July 1st to the 6th where he's talking about his experience as a prisoner.
Oh, cool.
So those will be posting.
Those will be on Facebook.
Starting today. It'll be one every day for the rest of this week.
Marvelous, Eric. Marvelous. Bueno. You know what?
Dan, Butterfield.
Another one. Look at me go. Just racking them up.
2 Dan Butterfields in one show. Good for you. All right. So Rich had a second question. He says, I have heard that Robert E. Lee contacted George Meade on the 4th to request a prisoner exchange, and Meade refused or said he did not have the authority to grant the request. Is this true, and was this a practice by the armies before the Battle of Gettysburg? Thanks for the great shows. Best wishes.
It's true. I've seen in the official records that Meade reported that, I think, to Halleck in Washington, that right after the battle, that Lee had proposed a prisoner exchange and that he refused it. I think he had the authority to do it, but he chose not to. And I think the reason Lee did that is because he was trying to unencumber himself of the Union prisoners, get some of his guys back, which later on in another battle might come in real handy. And if they had arranged an exchange of prisoners, and they normally didn't do this right on the battlefield. Normally you took your prisoners and you had exchanges after the battle, and of course Grant ended that later on in the war in '64. But you would have to arrange, a meeting place and a formal exchange, and that would be the whole time that's going on. The Confederates are heading over the mountains and getting out of here.
Right.
So it's a tactic, I think, by Lee to buy himself more time.
Okay.
To unencumber himself, he could move his army quicker without the Union prisoners.
And so Meade, you're thinking Meade smelled that. He knew that's what.
Yeah, I'm not sure he mentioned much about why he refused it, but I'm certain I've seen in the official records that in his report back to Washington immediately after the battle that he mentioned that Lee had asked for a prisoner exchange and then he turned it down.
Okay. All right. So these are from Facebook now. These are people watching live on Facebook, and they are putting these questions in the comments. So we haven't looked at them beforehand. What, Eric?
I have to say,
yes,
I asked for questions on Facebook last Thursday.
And no one had anything?
And nothing. And now all of a sudden, everybody's got questions.
Yeah, suddenly
What's
everybody's all curious. Well, all right. Here we go. So we haven't been able to look at these ahead of time. So, Jim, no pressure. If you don't know the answer off the top of your head, just say, I don't know, and that's fine. And maybe we can, you can find the answer, and maybe we can get it back to the person if they're that interested.
That sounds great.
Okay, here we go. Bobby Crystal, Billy's son, says, descendant of the 26th PVI, can you tell me a little bit about them and the 2nd Division of the 3rd Corps? If Bobby's still watching, can you be a little bit more specific about the 2nd Division of the 3rd Corps? And in the meantime, you want to talk about the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Volunteers?
Okay, we are talking about the emergency volunteers.
Volunteer infantry, sorry.
We are talking about
Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry, yeah. I misspoke. It's 26 PVI. That's what he wants.
It's not the emergency.
No, sir.
Guys, then there's nothing I can tell you. I could have talked to you about the emergency volunteer. I can tell you about those guys. Doggone it.
Well, tell us about those guys while he's getting more specific about the 2nd Division of the 3rd Corps question.
Well, the 26th Emergency Volunteers really weren't part of the Army of the Potomac. They were pretty much local guys here in the Gettysburg area. A lot of them, I believe, were students at Gettysburg College, which were hanging around for the summer. And they were scraped up. It was in response to the Confederate invasion. The Confederates are already in Pennsylvania. The Union Army is still down, kind of guarding Washington. The Confederates are already hunting for horses and stuff in the mountains. And so they scraped these guys together. They sent them up to Harrisburg. And they handed them rifles, and they trained them for about a week. And they rushed them back down here by train. And the train actually hit a cow between Gettysburg and New Oxford. And then they got to Gettysburg on the 26th, a Friday of June, 5 days before the battle. And it was light rain, and they sent them out the Chambersburg Road to meet the Confederates. They camped near Marsh Creek. And when they saw the Confederates coming down the road on June 26th, Gordon's brigade of Georgians, they basically threw their rifles and ran for Harrisburg. Ran northeast of Gettysburg all the way up to the area of Lisburn, up above Dillsburg area. And of course, there's a story of Jubal Early capturing some of them and lecturing them in the town square of Gettysburg that you boys should go home and to your mothers or something like that.
Right.
But they have a monument of a soldier, and he's facing the town, which is kind of weird.
Yes.
But it's right in front of the old Meade School, the Federal Point Inn, right there at the intersection of West Street, Chambersburg, and Buford Avenue. And then they have a monument, not too many people see, out where they camped and where they saw Gordon's men. It's just beyond Knoxland Ridge, where the first shot marker's fired.
Yeah.
You go downhill a little bit. It's on the right side of the road. A lot of people miss it.
No kidding.
Yeah, you haven't seen it, Matt?
No.
Oh, I have to go and see that.
I had no idea that was there.
Yeah, let's go do it.
June 26th on it, and it says 26th Pennsylvania Emergency. Oh, I'd be glad to show you that
No
sometime.
kidding. I'd love to see that.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see
It's
that.
near the bridge. It's near the bridge down there in Marsh Creek.
No shit.
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
I had no clue.
Oh, good. I love showing people this.
Okay, good. Yes, I love being shown things for the first time, so that'd be great. All right. Well, so that was interesting. And has he?
No, but I did some cursory searching on Google, and they're part of Carr's Brigade.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they're
The
out by
26th
Cadore
Pennsylvania.
Farm. Yeah.
So they're fighting up along the Emmitsburg Road there
Yeah.
one day, too.
Well, so then maybe would that be the second? Is that the 2nd Division of the 3rd Corps?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
1st Brigade, 2nd Division, 3rd Corps.
So that's why he was asking about that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Martin Husk. He says, I've heard a lot of debate of the exact location of Smith's Battery on July 2nd's fight at Devil's Den. Can you shed light on the location of the two sections supported by the 124th New York Infantry?
My understanding is originally they were along the stone wall west of their current position where the artillery pieces are located today, right at Devil's Den near the witness tree. And that when the Confederates came up the hill through what is the triangular field today, that they were pushed back to the crest of the ridge. There was one section that was detached. They had 6 guns, apparently. And 2 of them were sent down the Plum Run Valley, Crawford Avenue. So if you ever come up Crawford Avenue, like you're coming toward Devil's Den, and you see those 2 guns on the right side pointing toward Devil's Den on the south, that's part of Smith's Battery.
Okay.
The rest of the guns are the 4 guns that you see up there at the crest of Devil's Den, or just north of the rocks of Devil's Den. They're facing to the west. And the far left one is very close to that witness tree. that white oak that's right on top of Delsden.
Where the road gets really curvy.
Right.
It's right at the top of the hill.
When you come out, if you're going around behind Delsden and you come up around that witness tree, you make a left-hand turn in front of it, the Smith's guns are right on your right. And they have the battery marker with the soldier on top of the base holding the rammer.
Right.
That's the one that got vandalized years ago.
I remember that. He took a head dive right into the pavement.
Yeah, never found the guy's head, found the body down by the wall where the sharpshooter's famous photo was taken of the sharpshooter. They dragged him all the way down there. Yeah. And they had to find another head. And I think they used another statue that they found of a similar monument, made a mold out of it.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, December 2012 when they finally lowered that head. And apparently there was a dramatic moment like, will it fit? Will the head fit on the body? The new head on the original body. And from what I understand, fit perfectly. Perfectly. So it was meant to be.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that about the head. They didn't find the head?
It's a secondary head. No, they never found the head. To my knowledge, they never found it.
Bring me his head. So wait a second. So someone has his head to this day?
Well, yeah, I guess so.
Theoretically.
Or they sold it for scrap.
They sold it for scrap.
I think they went to New Hampshire, Philadelphia. They were looking at similar monuments, and they had to find something really close to that. And when they did, they made a mold out of it. And that's the head that's on there today.
I had no idea.
They did that the Hancock Gate that they put on Tawnytown Road. They did that with the
took
Eagles.
Its head?
No.
Oh, it found other eagles.
Yeah, I think it was the 29th PA. Because they've got an eagle on top of their monument. I think they used that one as the mold.
I didn't know that, Eric. That's interesting.
Yeah, because the 29th PA was missing their eagle for a while they were molding it. And then they cast two new ones for
So there's precedent for that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. Matt Shupinski says, curious as to why the bodies buried in the known mass graves on Culp's Hill and other areas have been left there rather than being reinterred into the National Cemetery? ? Well, let me break this down to you, Jim. Are the bodies left in the quote unquote known mass graves?
My understanding is there are North Carolinians and Louisianans buried there.
Okay.
The North Carolinians are apparently in the swale between Lower and Upper Culp's Hill. When you come down off of Lower Culp's Hill, or you're coming out of Pardee Field, you come to the stop sign there. It's right in front of you.
Okay.
And there's rocks there. I've heard that supposedly put those rocks there to keep the bodies from surfacing up, and that the Louisianans are in the trees over the earthworks just behind where the North Carolinians are. I've heard that. I haven't heard a whole lot to refute that.
And we're not talking about the one that everybody knows is supposedly behind the 1st Maryland, that little trench there. You're talking further down.
Back in the trees that they're clearing out right now.
Like that swale where between the 111th and 109th Pennsylvania, little dip right there.
That area. And of course, it's the National Cemetery is for Union soldiers. So these guys are Confederates, so they're not going to take them and move them up into the cemetery. I've heard stories that as many as 1,000 Confederates are still
out there.
buried out there, have never been found. Because you think about it, they were left to be buried by local civilians, and they remained buried out there for almost a decade, till 1872, when women in the South hired local workers to dig them up. Well, it's 9 years later, so you're going to miss an awful lot of them.
Sure. Gross. But the point is that they're not in the National Cemetery because they're Confederates.
Remember, that's supposed to be only for Union dead. Now, there are people that know that we have since discovered 10 Confederates, quote unquote, buried by mistake.
Right.
At the time they were established in the cemetery, the war's still going on. It's supposed to be for United States soldiers.
Right.
Now, today, we look at those 10 Confederates buried in the National Cemetery as American fighting men. We look at it differently today. But the fact of the matter is the cemetery has been closed since 1972 to burials.
Yeah. Right. So nobody can go in there anymore. It's done.
Unless there's a family member or something. Once in a while, you'll see a funeral, but it's usually not Civil War. It's those post-Civil War.
World War II and Vietnam.
Well, Vietnam's the most interesting, is the most recent.
Yeah.
So think about it. That's been almost, 50 years?
Yeah.
So you'd have to have like a daughter or son that's, outliving their parents by 50 years in order to be buried with, or a spouse. And how many are going to outlive their spouse by 50 years to be buried with them?
Yeah.
So.
Only the lucky. Yeah. Only the lucky. Okay. Mike Kearns says, taking into account Sickles' movement on the second day, was there any section of the Union's famous fishhook formation that was not engaged? Was there such a thing as the safest place on the battlefield, as the movie makes light of? Good question.
Wow, that is a good question. Well, first of all, if you look at the movie and they talk about Chamberlain being behind the Union Center, it's not right behind the Second Corps in the area where Meade's headquarters. It's more between.
It's like the area of the New Jersey Monument.
Exactly,
right? Yeah.
Matt. That's exactly it. Thank you. I was trying to think of the farm. Weichert Farm. Joseph Weichert Farm. Right.
No, not Joseph. George.
It's
George Weichert.
It's a Weichert.
It's a Weichert.
And you're exactly right. It's those
Yeah.
trees that are where the New Jersey Brigade marker is located and that head south on that ridge toward the Sedgwick Equestrian Monument.
Yeah.
That's the idea, really where they were.
Where they were. And so what was going on there?
It's the second day. So
actually, what is he talking about here?
Well, he says they weren't.
He's
really,
asking about the second day.
Second day that were kind of safe. You'd have to. Well, given the fact that the Confederates attacked the ends of the fishhook on day 2, then you'd have to say probably Cemetery Ridge or Cemetery Hill. But the problem with that is they're under artillery fire, so it's not completely safe there. If I had to be posted somewhere on day 2 in the Union line,
Westminster.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Washington, West Frederick, somewhere like that's a good point.
That's where I'd want to be.
I'm thinking maybe Cemetery Hill. You know, there's not a lot of direct fire
at that point, but later on.
Well, no, the next day you don't want to be there,
right?
Because of the bombardment.
Yeah,
but we're talking the second.
Oh, okay.
So I would want to be more.
No, wait. So the night of the second, though, wasn't that the assault on East Cemetery Hill?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
That's East Cemetery Hill.
I would.
Move me a little over to the left.
Okay, so you're talking about like where the National Cemetery is now and the Bryan Farm and Ziegler's Grove, that area there.
There you go.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, that seems like that would be the safest place.
Well, you're not under direct infantry attack, but you're under some artillery.
Yeah.
So the whole line is pretty much under attack. But the main attacks on day 2 came on the flanks of the fishhook, Culp's Hill on the right, east of the Baltimore Pike, and all the good stuff on the left, Wheatfield, Devil's Den, Peach Orchard, Little Round Top.
How about Powers Hill?
That's a good one.
I didn't think about that. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of in the middle of the fishhook.
I mean, the 5th Corps is in reserve there for a little while.
Might be the safest place.
Well, I would have to say so. Yeah,
but there are overshoots.
But you're elevated.
Not if you're on the south side of the hill. There's not.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you're on the south face of that hill, you're good.
You're good there.
yeah, I'd have to agree.
Yeah.
I mean, there were overshoots where we are right now, where the current visitor center is.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. When we were, we did an interview with Ron Kirkwood. The Spangler Farm, right?
Yeah.
Ron Kirkwood, about the Spangler Farm. And he, because he wrote a book, Too Much for Human Endurance.
The 11th Corps Hospital, that Spangler Farm, out on Hospital Road?
Yeah, George Spangler, right? Out on Hospital Road.
Yes.
Yeah. So today, driving through that, I never realized how close that is to everything because you can't see anything when you're there because of the trees. But we got to remember, we have more trees now than they did back then.
Right.
And so you can't, but there is an account in the book of soldiers watching pickets charge. Yeah. From there. Now, he thinks they might be up on a rooftop or something.
Almost have to be.
And maybe they're not seeing they're not seeing the charge come across. They're seeing the fighting on the ridge.
They're probably seeing the smoke.
Yeah.
Cannonballs exploding.
And overshoots are coming and hitting them.
Yeah.
And that's what you don't realize until you actually look at it on a map and you go, oh, yeah, that is pretty close. And if you take away the trees, you'll see even more how much closer it is. We're supposed to go out there and do another show from there, right? So that we can actually see this, right?
Yeah, here in a couple of weeks, actually.
Yeah, good. A year in a couple of weeks?
Oh, here in a couple of weeks.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, here? Not out on...
We're going to go out to the George Spangler Farm and do a show from there in a couple of weeks.
My boy's got the dander up.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Andy Hunt. It seems that many of the missed opportunities for a more complete Confederate victory on July 1st are due to subpar performances by a couple of divisions in Ewell's Corps. Rhodes' uncoordinated attack, Johnson's inability to take Culp's Hill. In your opinion, which misstep was the most significant? And then the follow-up question is, what was Ewell's relationship with his division commanders? Well, those are two big questions. Jim, who do you blame for the Confederate loss besides George Meade?
Well, are we talking about just the first day? So you're saying there was missed
He's saying July
opportunities?
1st, subpar performances by a couple of divisions in Ewell's Corps, Rhodes and Johnson.
Well, Rhodes didn't have his best day at Gettysburg, but, I mean, don't forget, when Ramseur showed up and he put the reserves in, he drove the Union forces back. Like I said earlier in that earlier question, we were talking about Iverson's men being impetuous. Rhodes was anxious to get his men into the fight. And they were so scattered. I mean, Doles is way over supporting Gordon on the Carlisle Road, way over on the left. We talked about O'Neill. His men advanced through the McLean Farm and got repulsed. Iverson got bushwhacked and basically butchered. Daniel's brigade is way over on the right. They go down and get involved in the fight along the Chambersburg Pike.
Yeah.
They get involved in that western fight,
right,
west of town. So I don't blame Rhodes so much for that. It's hard to blame Early, division commander. They overlapped the Union right.
He doesn't blame Early. He Johnson is the one.
Well, Johnson doesn't even get here until the end of the day. He got bogged down behind Longstreet's men in the mountains and doesn't even get here until it's practically dark. And by then, the guys are exhausted.
Right.
And I've never really blamed Ewell. I've talked about this on tours. Ewell is new to command, and we talk about the hierarchy. You've got Jackson under Lee, who has commanded these troops up until this point. Now he's been dead for 2 months, and he is given a lot of leeway by Lee. Go out the Shenandoah Valley, clear the Yankees. How you do it's up to you. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's out of the equation. Now you've got Ewell, who fought under Jackson, now answering directly to Lee. Okay, take those hills if practicable, but don't bring on a general engagement.
Right.
Well, what the heck is what's been going on here all day? If it's not a general engagement, for crying out loud. Right. So you got Ewell, who's used to taking very specific orders from Jackson, now all of a sudden taking orders directly from Lee that are very general in nature.
Well, you got to give Lee a break. I mean, he was looking for his lost chicken.
That's right. He's got other concerns of a more pressing nature.
There is no time.
So I don't blame Ewell. We look back today and we say, if Ewell's guys had pushed forward, we could have. That was the best chance the Confederates had, and I would say that's probably true in the battles, best chance they had. But he doesn't know. He doesn't know what's on East Cemetery Hill, Culp's Hill, or what's behind them. And people say, well, what if Jackson had been here? Would he have pushed forward? I don't doubt it. He was that aggressive. But the question is that we'll probably never know is, would he have been successful?
But would he have had the same situation to deal with? Are people usually saying if nothing else was different except Jackson was in command of the Second Corps, what would have happened? Is that what they're thinking?
I think that's usually the premise of.
Oh, okay, because I go, well, how do you know that we would even be here if Jackson was alive?
Sure.
Well, if you assume that they would have made it to Gettysburg, I don't think the first day would have gone any differently. Johnson's division is still out there. They're not going to be able to be utilized that day. So you got two divisions, and in the end, they did push through the town. I mean, Jackson's men still would have been broken up by the buildings of the town, the formations. Gathering prisoners would have. They would still had to get everybody together again in order to make an attack. It was getting late. They were exhausted. They marched 10, 15 miles, been fighting all day long. That's not going to change anything.
But Johnson, so and on all this stuff here too, like you pointed out, Johnson got there late in the day.
Yeah.
They had been marching all day. Yeah. They were stuck in a traffic jam.
Right.
Just driving in a traffic jam is exhausting. Standing and marching in a traffic jam is exhausting.
And the
too.
heat and humidity.
The heat, the humidity. It's getting dark.
Right.
And Early's division put up a good fight. They had marched to the battlefield, and it's just as hot where they were as it is where Johnson was. So, I mean, these guys are exhausted.
Right.
They don't know what's out there ahead of them. There's a threat possibly over on their left. Ewell is, it's like, I don't know anybody that would have done anything different
Totally agree.
Yeah, because you got to look at the circumstances that they had.
And don't forget about the confusion in the town. You're busy gathering up Union soldiers as prisoners, about 4,000 of them. So your formations are completely broken up as you're going from house to house.
Yeah.
So now you got to get everybody back together again in a place where all these buildings are. It's kind of hard to form in the streets and form an attack. And it's just, you can look back at it from 2020 hindsight and say that was the best chance the Confederates had. But you have to look at the way Ewell saw it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think Jackson, probably would have pushed forward knowing his aggressive nature. But once again, the question is, would he have been successful pushing these guys through town and trying to take those heights, Cemetery Hill, Culp's Hill, on the first? Now, the Union Army, we also know, was pretty exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know. We don't know what would have happened.
Have you read An Environmental History of the Civil War?
No, I have not.
Oh, you got to read it. It's great. But the lesson that book teaches you is, first of all, it wipes away the romance of the war, of any war, but the Civil War specifically. Like, there's nothing romantic about it. As my good friend Karen said after reading the book, she goes, I basically came to the conclusion that Virginia was basically a giant poo carpet because of all the manure from the animals and the men and, all this stuff. It was just disgusting. But there's a lot more to the book than that. But my point is that the lesson I got out of it was it's the little things, not the big things in a battle or in a war, that add up to a bigger thing. And so you're talking about, all the stuff that Ewell's Corps and the Confederates in general, as they're coming through the town and rounding up the prisoners and all that jazz. It's not like, the Union fell back and retreated through the town and all, holed up on the hill, and the Confederates went right after them. And it was just this big, evacuation of Union troops and moving in of Confederates. No, there were Union troops still there. There were pockets of resistance. There was all this stuff that they had to contend with. And it's those little things that cause the bigger problem. And so Ewell had a lot of little things to deal with that caused the bigger problem of not taking that hill. But the way we like to simplify everything for history, and especially with the movie, as much as I love the movie, as the first thing that we see and the first thing that teaches us anything about the battle. And if you're anything like me, when you first saw it, you watched it 20, 30,000 times. It's hard to take those notions out of your head when you actually look at the nitty gritty of all these stories and see, okay, there's a lot more to it than, it just wasn't practicable. And, Trimble's whole thing where he's yelling at,
And he said nothing.
Like that whole scene, that's a good scene to show and everything, but it wasn't that simple. It wasn't that simple as Trimble in the movie makes it out to be. There was a lot that Ewell had on his shoulders that he had to consider before doing what Trimble wants him to do.
That's right.
But when you don't read, you got to read. So that's why I'm always saying, people, you got to read these books.
And he's brand new to Corps Command.
Yes.
At this point, before Lee reorganized his army prior to Gettysburg, Ewell is commanding a division of about 8,000 men. And now he's commanding a corps of about 20,000 men.
Yeah.
So between 2 and 3 times larger. But I don't think that had anything necessarily to do with what went on the first day. I just think that, I think it all goes back to what Shelby Foote said in his series about Gettysburg. He entitled it the chapter Stars in Their Courses. And he said, at Gettysburg, the stars in their courses were aligned against Lee. All kinds of brilliant things that occurred in other battles. A.P. Hill showed up just in time at Antietam on just the right place. And Gettysburg's a different situation. Lee is in a situation with the resources and the men that he has, that if the war goes on much longer, he's forced to gamble, and eventually you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And it caught up to him here in Gettysburg.
Yeah.
So real quick, Andy Hunt, the guy who asked the question, clarified some things. He said the basis of my question is that David Martin contends that Ewell fully expected Johnson to take the hill and was disappointed to find out that he didn't. But the Johnson's contact with elements of the 7th Indiana caused him to reassess. Thanks again. Great episode.
Thanks, Andy.
See, that's a great point.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
they run into the skirmish line of the 7th Indiana, who happen to be the only people on the hill at the time, but they don't know that.
They don't know that,
that's exactly right, Eric.
We
they
know
get
that.
the impression that the whole hill is heavily fortified. They just happened to hit the wrong spot on the hill where there were Union soldiers, and it gives you this impression.
Exactly. There's a skirmish line that runs all the way from the peak of the hill down to Rock Creek. They don't know that it's exactly one regiment on that skirmish line, and it's the whole regiment on that skirmish line, and that there's nobody behind them, because in Civil War tactics, if there's a skirmish line, there's somebody behind it because it's there for a reason.
Eric, why isn't the camera on you while you're talking?
Because I don't like
Well,
the camera
people
being
want
on
to see
me.
you, Eric.
No, they don't.
You almost got a Dan Butterfield for this point about the 7th Indiana, but I'm taking it away because your face wasn't on the camera. Go ahead, Jim.
Here's my awesome
Well, now
face.
nobody wants to see it. We
yeah,
want to see
there
when
it
you're
is.
talking. Go to Jim now. He's going to speak.
Yep, hide
What
your
am I gonna
children.
speak
I don't know. It looked like you were going to talk.
No, I was just wondering where the camera was.
Right here. Right in front of you.
Oh, there's a camera. The whole time his camera's been on me? I thought that was it up there.
No, that's the overhead.
Yeah, there's all kinds of cameras.
Yeah, this is cameras.
You guys
everywhere.
should have told me that before we started
Oh,
today.
I thought you knew it was right in your face.
No, it's just a black piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Now I know.
We got one more here. Chris Whitmore. Can you briefly discuss the involvement of the 5th Florida from Perry's brigade of Anderson's division? I like this. We don't really talk about the Florida troops too much.
Don't know too much about it. But you're right. Florida only had 3 regiments. Perry's brigade, 700 men, and they're only going to fight on the 2nd and 3rd day, and they're going to lose 445 casualties, which I've always thought was amazing because, you know, if we talk about, even in Civil War context, which the casualties seem to be blown out of proportion, 50% is crazy. Iron Brigade, 50%? They suffered so badly. These guys lost 445. 50% of 700 is 350. These guys lost almost 100 guys more than 50%.
Yeah.
And basically they're supporting Pickett's charge on the right. Got involved a little bit on the 2nd day as well, moving up toward the Emmetsburg Road there. So they paid a terrible price. Florida had a limited presence here, but boy, they made their presence felt.
Yeah. It's interesting though because you don't really hear a lot about them in the overall story.
Nope, but they dedicated their monument 100 years after the battle on June 1st, 1963.
Mm-hmm. And if I recall, because monuments always come up and everything, and when they were dedicated and all the politics of those days and everything. But if I recall, the message at the dedication of the Florida monument was a lot more like liberal. It was more open. Like, hey, everybody, retire down here. It's not exactly that, but it was a lot less pro-segregation.
Conciliatory.
It was conciliatory. It was everybody's welcome in Florida type of stuff. I don't remember it exactly, but
Come on down. We got swampland for cheap.
Exactly, we got swampland for cheap. We just built a big theme park, and someday all you Yankees might want to retire here for the weather.
And they were right.
My aunt moved down there. My mom's thinking of it.
Katie's mom moved down there.
Yeah. I mean, hey. Okay. So, any other questions in there while we before we go?
Not really, and we're kind of at the end of our time.
What do you mean our time? Oh, because Jim's got to go. He's got a tour.
I got a 12:30 bus.
That's right. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all. What we'll do is we'll let Jim go. We'll just play a quick little fife and drum song for you here, and then we'll come back and we'll just. I want to go through here and see. I saw some of their comments coming through, and I just want to go acknowledge a couple things. So we'll take a little break. For the Facebook people, but for the podcast people, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time. Mark that there.
Do you have a local business in Gettysburg? Do you want to reach people who are itching to visit us, but don't know exactly where to stay, where to eat, or what to do while they're here? Well, then you should consider advertising on Addressing Gettysburg. You can reach thousands of Gettysburg enthusiasts per month who are within a 4 to 8 hour drive of us, as well as all over the world. Reach them where they are before they're already in town. This is the more affordable and more 21st century way to advertise. So contact us at advertise@addressinggettysburg.com for more information. That's advertise at addressinggettysburg.com.
You're listening to the Addressing Gettysburg podcast with Matt Calvary.
We're back now. Okay, so Facebook, this is where the fun begins. That's where the fun begins. Let's see. By the way, patron extraordinaire Mike Lentz is joining us. Do you need help with that? Mike?
I'm howering it over here, you know.
Can I help you? Can I help you?
Howard came to the studio. This is what would be happening all the time.
Get the camera on him. Mike hurt his elbow, and so he can't put the headphones on.
Well, he's on camera. It's just the overhead. Now it's just you.
Yeah. He hurt his elbow, so he couldn't put the headphones on. And earlier, he got one ear on, but then the other earpiece went over his eye. So he's like doing it one-handed, and he's like pulling it like this, and the other piece gets like right over. I can't even do it. And I just caught it at the right moment, and it started cracking me up. And then I realized,
like you need to be playing yakety sax or something while I'm putting on headphones.
Oh man, that is always a good song to have.
Real
on
quick,
head. Yeah.
Matt Shapinski. No, we cannot shed any more light on the emergency militia here on June 26th. However, if you are a patron, we are doing an Ask a Guide about June 26th tomorrow with Tim Smith. Mm-hmm. So if you're a patron, go ahead and send
respond to the post.
And
Hello, exactly.
Yeah. Matt Sheets, I don't know that there was ever any actual consideration on the part of Disney to put a theme park here in Gettysburg.
No, that was
it was
Manassas.
down in Manassas.
Yeah. No, I think people would have shot them if they tried to do that up here.
Yeah. I mean, there was a casino racetrack thing that was
That's
in the
different.
works here at one point, but that's not Disney.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I think Disney. Actually, I think Disney is more abhorrent than a casino. To be honest with you,
I don't know, man.
Oh, I do. I do.
Know.
Come on, little Iron Man with your Gettysburg. Come on, let's go. Let's go.
What?
Little Iron Man with your Gettysburg. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
go. Yeah.
I don't hate Disney.
Well, you should. You should read a book. There's a book I read. I forgot what it was called, but they're a horrible company. Kevin Sackett said, homeless question episodes are the best. This is true, Kevin. This is true. They're more free form. They're all over the place, which is fun for all of us here. Anthony Bordner, hello guys. Thanks again for an awesome tour. Thank you for coming, Anthony. Hopefully next time you'll be able to make it to Mason-Dixon afterwards. He always has to leave. He works on Saturdays, so at least he comes out for the tours.
All right, you got to wrap this up. I'm out of coffee. Let's go.
Oh no. Well, you could use Jake's coffee maker with the mold on it.
I'm good.
Martin Huss says, I've heard a lot of debate. Oh, we did that one. Okay, sorry. I'm just trying to get the ones that weren't actually questions. Yeah, Anthony Borden thought it was the Shrivers as well.
Yeah.
We just looked through. We have the Shriver House book, and we were looking through it, but we didn't. Well, I should say I made Mike do it. Mike was looking through it. Curious as to why the bike. Okay, we did that one. Matt Shapinski, Mike Hearns, second account Sickles movements. Okay, we did that. Andy Hunt seems many of the missed opportunity. Yep, okay. Andy Hunt is on the list. There we go. Could you talk a little bit more? Okay, we did that. There was what was it? I saw one in here. You really Florida. Okay, that was the last one, wasn't it? Okay, great show as always. Thanks, Matt, Eric, and Jim. You're welcome, Rich Snyder. Thank you very much. Andy Hunt, thank you for taking my question. You're welcome, Andy. Thank you for asking it. Timothy Dolan, don't forget Jackson's Corps was split up after his death. Yeah, true. Jackson being there means 2 corps instead of 3.
Hang on. Let me talk about that real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jackson's Corps was split up, yes. However, that was part of a Army of Northern Virginia reorganization that Lee had been considering for quite some time and just hadn't had the opportunity to implement it.
Jackson's death gave him that opportunity.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a little bit of a break between Chancellorsville and Gettysburg, so he's like, well, okay, we'll just do it now. So that was something that Lee had been considering basically since he took command of the Army.
Mm-hmm. Did not like the 2 corps system.
No, it's just too much for one person to handle.
Yeah, and especially in Virginia. it's a lot tighter. It's not like here with wide open fields. It's harder to maneuver. Lots of woods.
Sure.
Ryan. Is that right?
Ryan.
Do you know him personally?
No, I just know how to pronounce things.
Well, this is not a thing. This is not English. This is some other language.
It's Irish, and aren't you Irish?
First of all, it's not Irish. It's Gaelic.
Whatever.
Number one.
It's
And
the
number
same
two,
thing.
I never learned to read Gaelic. I could just speak it fluently.
Well, that's not written in Gaelic either.
Yeah, it is. Right?
No. Have you ever seen Gaelic?
No,
Oh my
because I can
God.
only speak it. I can't read it.
I've been through Ireland, and the signs are all written in English.
It's very
and-
strange.
yeah.
Very strange.
Like a lot of squiggles and dots and like weird hooks and whatnot.
We actually earlier, Matt Shapinski, though, we did talk earlier about the 26th. Not a lot,
a little
though.
bit, yeah.
But we're going to get into it with the Ask a Guide about them, like like Eric said. Matt Shees, you joked about Florida and the theme park. Oh, okay, we got that. And Andy Hunt, my favorite comment is this one here. Could listen to this all day. I'm pinning it. And Andy, you, my friend, are getting
Dan Butterfield.
Dan Butterfield. Everybody loves Dan Butterfield. Okay, thanks, guys. Really enjoy these podcasts. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Bill Pike. Chuck Crushfield says, I was walking from Big Round Top to the PA Monument Friday. There was a big gap in regimental monuments between the 11th Corps, and New Jersey Monument. I'm sorry, 11th Corps and New Jersey Monuments, 100-yard gap. Any thoughts why? Big Round Top to the PA Monument, there is a big gap in regimental monument. Oh, because that's where McGilvery's line was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't really
any much infantry there.
not. Well, I mean, there was. So
But it wasn't
the
like-
3rd Corps ends up assembling like to the rear of that line.
But they didn't
And-
fight there, so they didn't get their
Like
monuments there.
Willard's Brigade fights.
Out in the thicket.
Yeah, in that general area. But that's not where anybody was really supposed
They
to
didn't
be.
fight there.
Yeah, so they put their monuments elsewhere. And that goes back to the what the hell was that rule? The line of battle.
The line of
policy.
battle.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can't really. You guys already know this. You can't really gauge like what the battle line looked like necessarily off of where monuments are.
Right. It's all
you
rough.
can to a point, but it's not.
I look at it like as
all-encompassing.
like zone defense, like in basketball, like where your monument is. They're not static. You're not just sitting there the whole time necessarily, but you are in charge of this particular zone, and then you got to actually look and read what they did and get an idea of where they went and from where that monument is and where they are in relation to it. Plus, also, I was talking to Tim Smith the other night, and we were talking about my writer's block with the July 1st narrative episode script.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to get more information about, what Buford's cavalry did, not because they did anything special, because I think it's always glossed over. And I don't think people really understand, because the movie, I think, inaccurately portrays the whole Buford thing.
They make it look like a knockdown, drag out fight.
Yeah.
That's not what it was.
No, and so I think people have this idea in their minds that it's this big thing, and it wasn't. And so I want to get more into what it was, but it was so boring. And as Tim says, he's like, well, how many casualties did the 13th whatchamacallit, 13th Alabama have? Like 7. I think one of them was killed. So it wasn't that big of a deal.
Well, I think there's a basic misconception about what Buford was supposed to be doing out there. And
That's my point, and that's why I'm trying to find more info to go into it. But it's so there's just a dearth. But anyway, the point of the conversation in relation to the monuments was we talked about how the monuments for the cavalry are on Reynolds Avenue, and I go, but they didn't fight there. And I go, but I've seen, I can't remember which book it is. I want to say it was Morning at Willoughby Run. The map that he has there has the regiments where their monuments are. But that wouldn't make sense to put your battle line there because you've already given up West McPherson's Ridge.
Right.
So you've got to try to hold there until you can't anymore, and then you fall back to East McPherson's Ridge.
Yeah.
So you can't. So my point is, you can't go by the monuments because, as Tim said, he goes, "Well, I think it's because when they placed those monuments, they didn't own West McPherson's Ridge,
Yes.
so they had to put it on Reynolds Avenue because that's what they owned." So that's why you always got to read the monuments. You can't trust every map. You got to read, even when you have like map books and stuff. You got to read what they say because that might explain. Well, they weren't always there or whatever. So there's a lot of. It's kind of like being a detective, you know. You have to put clues together, and of course, asking people and taking guided tours helps that a lot. What, Eric? What's so funny? Who was laughing?
Me.
That was
you
Mike.
were laughing. What's so funny, Mike?
Well, I completely agree with you. Going back to the question, I think the closest regiment that you could possibly make a case for is possibly the 39th New York, but they're up with the rest of Willard's brigade up near the Bryan farm.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it comes down to what land was owned and preserved at the time and the placing of the monuments.
Right.
And then, of course, prioritizing, okay, do we place any infantry monuments here or do we focus on McGilvery's artillery line?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens is it follows McGilvery's artillery line out there.
Yeah, and speaking of that area, you got Watson's battery is in the wrong place.
Right.
That's not where he was.
Well, it's based off of a road that no longer existed when the monument was put up.
Absolutely.
And erroneously based off of U.S. Avenue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of the things that, but we like everything to just be neatly figured out for us, and we want to be able to trust that what we see is what it is, and that's not the way it works.
I mean, that's like Smith's Battery, right?
Yeah.
We talked about Smith's Battery earlier. Smith's Battery was not posted where their monument is or where those guns are.
No.
And Hunt himself came to the monument dedication, if I remember correctly, and he spoke to, I think it was Smith in command of the battery still at that point. But anyways, he spoke to whoever was the battery commander at Gettysburg and said, if you had placed your guns here, I would have relieved you on the spot. Because it doesn't make any sense. They were up further on top of Houck's Ridge. Basically, if I remember Tim Smith correctly, the left gun was more or less where the 99th PA's monument is now, and it extended north to the right towards the wheat field there. But there's only 4 guns up there.
Yeah.
And by the time Confederates actually get through the triangular field and they push the 124th New York back, there's only 3 guns there because one of them had been disabled and drugged down to the bottom of the hill. And that disabled gun they got out, along with the section that was back towards farther north on Crawford Avenue. So, you can't gauge where units are on the battlefield based off of their monuments and their flank markers. Like we like that notion, but it's not necessarily true.
And I don't think that when they're put there that they're necessarily meant to be something that is precisely marking something. Like a lot of them have stuff written on them, and there's a reason. It's because they want you to read it, and then sometimes it'll tell you, like Doubleday's headquarters marker. It says it's 250 yards or something like that to the rear along the Chambersburg Pike. So you guess like kind of like 2.5 football fields distance, and you look at the Chambersburg Pike and you figure, well, maybe it's over there, but it's marked up on Reynolds Avenue, and same I think was Longstreet's, and Hills.
Both of those have inscriptions at the bottom, at the base of them that says
saying it's somewhere else. It's not here.
And people should come out to next month's Get Out the Car tour.
I agree.
Because we're also going to see the 11th Corps monuments and just how incorrect those are in the placement of the 11th.
Oh, yeah.
They're put where they are because the tour road was there.
That's what they own.
And they want people to see it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and they don't own the property where they actually were at least placed, if not where they actually fought. So, yeah, I mean, until very recently, the corner, I don't know if you remember this, Mike. I don't know when you started coming here.
Talking about the Ford dealership?
Yeah, the corner of you were here when that was?
I saw that, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't understand how
What New York regiment is that? That's right there on the corner, and then they have the 157th.
Yeah. 157th.
Yeah. So there was a Ford dealership between their main monument
and their forward
position marker,
yes.
right dead smack dab in the middle of it.
It was atrocious.
If you go out there now, you can kind of see the remnant of the lot just based on the way that little bitty slope more or less flattens out unnaturally.
Yeah, and it's like the same with where Stuckey's was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Also, well, it's a little less impressive. Is the what was that place called? There was a motel right next to General Pickett's buffet.
The Home
Sweet Home.
Yeah,
that field there, but it looks like a developed lot, so it's not as impressive as the Stuckey's is. But Stuckey's, if you actually go and stand in the corner, what is that? Is that the 66th Pennsylvania?
63rd
Pennsylvania. That monument right on the corner there. If you go and stand there and look out into the field, you can see where the parking lot and the building was. Because there is a distinct difference in the lay of the land and the color of the grass. That's the other thing. The color of the grass.
You can see like the phantoms of these old buildings just by the way they're level. Like none of these hills were made level. They were made that way after the fact.
You know what I'd still love to find is where the swimming pool was. Behind the Cavalry farm.
Fair enough.
I still can't, no matter what time of year I go and look, I can't.
Well, that's like out on the first day, right across the street from the West End Guide Station.
Yeah.
There used to be a motel there.
That's right.
And if you go out there now, you cannot tell.
No, because they've been plowing those fields.
Sure. It's been farmed for quite some time, but they really heavily, not tapered, they graded that off to build that building and gas station there. But now you couldn't tell.
Well, I wonder if when they removed it, did they leave it level or did they try
I think
to
they probably
sculpt
I think
it?
they probably tapered it back a little bit.
That's probably why.
But then again, it's been farmed for quite some time.
Yeah. Andy Hunt says I could listen to this. Oh no, he said that I pinned it. Never mind. Everybody else is saying shut up. Were there other buildings or homes near the Leicester house, or did that area look as it does today? I believe
there was a farm across the street, but a little bit further north, not directly across the street.
Right.
Kind of.
I think that side of the road looks the same.
The house that they use for the park
law
police,
enforcement,
right? So it wasn't that house. It's like just downhill from that. I think where that parking lot is now, that little dirt auxiliary parking lot is. So a little bit closer to the Leicester house, but on that side of the road. There was a farm. Kendra, I think, talked about that.
The Gwynn farm.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the Leicester house side of the road between that and the Fry farm is the same. There's a picture from after the battle, not too long after the battle, I don't believe, of the Tawnytown Road, and you can see the Leicester house. And I think you could. There's another one from the Fry farm, which I don't believe is right after the battle, but it's still in the 1860s, and you can kind of see down the road a bit and get an idea. But that basically looks the same.
The Leicester house side of the road looks right.
What's the one when you're coming out of Pleasanton, straight across the street? There's a little yellow farmhouse. What is that one?
I don't remember the name of it.
Is that a battle era house?
Yeah, it is.
It is. Okay.
Yeah. At least part of the house is.
Okay.
Kendra's talked about that one too.
Yeah, I know. That's why I can't. It's not Patterson, is it?
That might be the Patterson farm.
Okay.
But at least part of the house is battle era, but the entire house is not.
But wait, then there's the next one, which is that white one that's right on the road on the left if you're heading south, and it's like a little bit up on a little bit of a hill there.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's horses in the field. You know which one I'm talking? It's before you get to Granite Schoolhouse.
Yeah, I don't know what that one is.
Lentz, you got it? 6 questions? You got it? No. Come on, Lentz. Come on.
Well, that's why you asked a half a dozen questions.
I wasn't
every
listening,
time.
so I.
Nobody else is either.
Oh, we lost everybody?
We're down to 11.
Oh.
We still got a few people.
Well, don't say those 11 people are nobody. Oh, well, I got to monitor it somehow. We should get the second monitor and
that sounds awful.
Mirror the screen. No, put it right up above here and I can look at it.
Right.
No, then it'll fall on somebody.
On you.
Yeah, on me, right.
Would that be?
I'm more concerned about the equipment than me. It'd be a blessing if it fell on me.
Don't I know it?
Oh, shut your face.
There's no time for that, Mark.
There's no time.
There is no time.
There is no time.
Oh my God!
I have told you there is no time for that. There's no time.
Start feeling like Trimble. I always like that account too.
Nothing.
He's the only guy who remembers that happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And it made it into a movie.
Nobody else ever brought that up except for him.
He said nothing. He just stood there.
The late Morgan Shepherd. Yeah, so anyway, that's the thing with the monuments there. You gotta be careful. You gotta read them. You gotta think. You gotta put different pieces of evidence together. Like I'll give you this. So another thing I was talking about with Tim the other day was there's a story that I want to put in the narrative. It's a little anecdote that I first read in the Fonts book about a Lieutenant Colonel Kress from Wadsworth's division, and he is up in town supposedly looking for shoes for the division.
Well, everybody was looking for shoes.
Everybody was looking for shoes. Yeah. This is a big shoe factory.
What do you think this battle happened, Matt?
I know. All about shoes. And so he's down there right in front of the 7-Eleven, and Buford comes out of his headquarters to head to the front to see what's going on. And he sees Kress as he's walking to his horse, and he says, "What are you doing here?" And Kress says, "I'm looking for shoes for the division." And he goes, "Get back to your division." And then Kress says, "Why, General? What's the matter?"
Oh, yeah.
And then Buford is swinging up onto his horse, and as he sits his butt down in the saddle, a muffled, "Shut up! I'm telling the story." a muffled gun goes off in the distance, and he goes, "That's what's the matter." And beef.
And he rode off into the sunset.
Stop jumping out my goddamn jokes. I'm going to mute your microphone.
I know how to unmute it.
Mother.
Put that in your juice box and suck it, Junior.
I told you there is no time for that.
Anyway, I read the footnote to see where he gets this from. And he says Doubleday. So I go and I read Doubleday. And he doesn't say anything more than Fonts. And so I'm like, are you serious? So this is like, he just took this 3 or 4 sentences from Doubleday, and I have no more. I want some background into this. Who is he going on his own? Who sent him in? Because, you know, when you're going to tell a story, or I guess unless you're Harry Fonts or Doubleday, you want a little more detail so your listener like has some context.
Are you talking about Doubleday's report? Or
no, Doubleday's book,
Chancellorsville
to Gettysburg.
Okay.
So then I'm reading Morning at Willoughby Run. He says this takes place not outside the Eagle Hotel, but outside the seminary, which I don't believe, because why would you be looking for shoes by the seminary? Unless you're moving to the sound of the guns to hear what's going on. But then why aren't you going back to your division? Who sent him? So then Tim says, he goes, actually, I read his full account. He says he didn't remember the details. He goes, but I read the article that came from. It's like from the Missouri, something or other.
Oh, of course it is.
Some old newspaper. And he goes, I'll try to find it for you and everything. And so the next day he sent me a screenshot. He says, I couldn't find the article that we're looking for on newspapers.com, but I found this. And it's another account from another newspaper about a different situation that Kress told. So it's interesting. Now I'm interested in this Kress guy. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And why is he being interviewed? And why won't he tell me why he was in town? Who sent him? Why was he there? And where was it really in the Eagle? And so now I'm stuck on this. I'm stuck on the where was it? At the Eagle Hotel, or Fonts explicitly says Eagle Hotel, and he puts it in the timeline where you would imagine that Buford would be leaving headquarters to go to the front.
Is it possible that all of this is apocryphal and didn't actually happen?
No, it can't be possible after all the thinking that I've
written. It's written somewhere. It must be true.
Therefore, it's true.
it's Matt's holy grail right now.
This is like a movie. I mean, the thing is, it's like it's written like a movie scene. It does sound a little bit made up. It sounds too perfect.
Does it?
Yeah, it does.
Man.
Yeah.
Bummer.
But I love it.
Yeah.
I love it as a scene. I love the vision. But of course, I'm not picturing Buford doing this. I'm picturing Sam Elliott doing this. So, who knows?
That's like the Doubleday Archer story.
Right.
It's all well and good, but it seems pretty apocryphal to me.
I think a lot of these stories are, or at least like heavily embellished. Like they're kind of true.
But, you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon. Because there's a lot of...
I read a lot of stuff that was written between like 1880 and 1910, and some of it is like super good and useful, and some of it is just there's no fucking way this ever happened.
Right.
Like, why did you bother writing this down in your book and publishing it? Like the 93rd PA is really good about that. In their regimental history, they basically make the claim that they themselves saved Little Round Top from capture. Just them.
Okay.
That's it. Like 93rd PA showed up, they charged down to the wheat field, end of battle. They won it. Like, did you guys not notice that part of your own brigade went forward with you, and all of McCandless's brigade on your left went too? And in fact, they went before you did.
I'm going to ask you.
So you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
Yes.
Especially from like 1880 to like 1910, because there's a fair bit of it is just embellished.
They're older.
Yeah.
They're missing their youth, and maybe they're like, well, had I thought of it, I could have done this at that age, so let's just say I did. Because who's going to,
Ooh, let's talk about Chamberlain's report.
Oh, yeah.
or talk about John Gordon. Let's talk about that, too.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I came up on Francis Barlow, and he was wounded. And dude, that didn't happen. Come on. And now you guys are best friends after the war?
Yeah, best friends.
BFFs.
And lovers.
I don't think so.
My boy's got the damn.
All right, let's get going because I'm starving. I need to have some lunch. It's now lunchtime. And aren't you hungry? I'm hungry. You hungry?
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm hungry. You hungry?
Yeah, sure.
I'm hungry. We're hungry. So the weather's nice outside.
Damn sure glad the rain's gone.
And we're going to...
It's the first time that one's ever been used.
I know. I don't know why I put it on there because I don't know the context I would use that in, except
Just
that.
this right now.
Yeah, like if we're ever here with the door open because it's really hot and it's raining outside and you could hear it and then it stops.
Damn sure glad the rain's gone.
And then that's about it. I could probably use that space with something more useful than that one.
Hello, exactly.
Thank you, Marky Mark.
I feel like pretty much all of those buttons could be replaced with something more useful.
Well, we have some useful stuff in here, like audiobook narrator Mike Scott. Okay.
When selecting,
that's useful.
Hey, everybody, Addressing Gettysburg is proud.
Okay, we've got some
make it
commercials.
stop.
Of course.
Make it stop.
And most importantly,
Cool.
Yeah.
exactly. So, let's get going. We'll play a little fife and drum, and we'll stop the show after the fife and drum song is over. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with us during these trying times. And God save the Queen. We'll talk to you later.
Man, it smells weird in here.
That's the Queen.
Cool.